The temperature is so cold, exposed human skin freezes solid in less than an hour. The air is so thin, the average unadjusted person would die within minutes. A man named Norm is huddled with his best friend Chris on the face of the southeast ridge, towards the summit of Mount Everest. After an unexpected storm, they have been separated from the rest of the group of tourist climbers. Because of the conditions, Chris's body has begun shutting down and is incapable of holding balance, forcing him to stop in one of the most dangerous sections of the mountain. Norm, Chris, and Norm's wife, Jill, had decided a little over a year ago that they were going to climb Mount Everest together for Norm's 39th birthday. The idea for the trip sprang up during a moderately drunk conversation about life and getting old in a bar. They talked about how it felt like their life was slipping away from them, how they were wasting their remaining prime adult years in monotonous routines with little to no excitement anymore. Then they reminisced about past times and trips filled with hiking and climbing adventures. They lamented over how long it had been. They recalled memories of their 20s and early 30s, hiking some of the greatest trails and climbing some of the greatest mountains in the world. By the end of the conversation, they promised each other that by this time next year, they would climb Mount Everest together and feel that sense of wonder and excitement again. Now, 1 year later, Norm and Chris are sitting at the highest point of Earth's crust, at their lowest points ever imaginable. It's Norm's 39th birthday today. Jill is waiting safely back at base camp after experiencing challenges with the ascent and was guided back down by a Sherpa before the storm. Norm is better off than Chris, but not by much, and won't be for long. Inside Norm's gloves, frostbite is moving from his fingertips down his hands. Both him and Chris are running dangerously low on oxygen, and their oxygen tanks have almost completely run out, with only traces of additional breaths left to be split between them. Norm can go back down himself, but fears that if he leaves, Chris will die with certainty. He hopes that both their body heat and supplies can hold them over until the storm passes, and they can get more oxygen sent up to restabilize Chris and bring him down. Norm is not in the most rational state of mind as more time passes. Chris's speech wanes as his consciousness begins to freeze inside his head. Realizing what is happening, Norm gets to the base camp radio and contacts Chris's wife for him. Chris struggles to get words out as his wife cries amidst the static on the other line. They say they love each other. They talk about what they're going to do when Chris gets home. Then Chris tells her to tell his only son, his parents, and his brother that he loves them and he's sorry. Not long after the call, Chris goes to sleep for the last time. By this point, Norm is holding on by a thread. He leaves Chris, now that he is sure there is no hope left. Norm traverses back down the face of the mountain, struggling through the storm, using every neuron in his brain to move his legs, one step at a time. By unbelievable odds, he makes it close enough to base camp to be intercepted and taken the rest of the way on a stretcher, just before passing out from lethal levels of oxygen deficiency. It's 2 weeks later. Norm is safe at home. His left hand and left foot have been amputated. Far scarier, he has been in an unresponsive, catatonic state ever since returning home. Doctors weren't able to find any physical, tangible abnormalities in his brain, but suspected the oxygen deficiency, subsequent seizures, and psychological damage from the trauma of the experience all combined to cause Norm's strange state. Norm is capable of moving and talking, but doesn't do much of either. It's as if all of his interest and motivation are gone, and asking him to say or do anything is like asking someone to learn how to throw a baseball 80 miles per hour. Who doesn't like baseball? 2 months go by. Norm has been going 4 times a week to a psychiatrist specializing in trauma psychotherapy. Slowly, Norm has begun to come out of his withdrawn, silent state, but something remains very strange. After struggling to pin down exactly what is wrong, the psychiatrist finally diagnoses Norm with a rare, extreme form of a mental condition known as anhedonia. Norm, his parents, and Jill sit in a psychiatrist's office while the psychiatrist explains the diagnosis. It's hard to understand, I'm sure, but essentially Norm has lost the ability to attribute any significance to sensations and emotions. He's just experiencing things as things. What do you mean, things as things? Things are just things. Norm's father confusingly interrupts. Yes, but I mean he isn't distinguishing the different qualities of things. Like he's not processing the difference between pleasure or pain, beauty or ugliness, blue or red, exciting or dull, etc. Everything is sort of just a different image of the same thing. The psychiatrist explains. How is that even possible? Norm's mother emotionally emits. Something like this is pretty rare, so it's hard to know exactly what is happening. But cases of anhedonia and other mental disorders like it are typically triggered from PTSD or major depression, or both. This case is especially strange and extreme, but between the lack of oxygen, the seizures, and the psychological trauma, it unfortunately kind of adds up. The psychiatrist replies, "Is it permanent or?" Jill speaks up for the first time. But with the uncertainty comes the possibility that it gets better. If it's purely psychological, then I think it's possible that he makes a recovery and comes out of it. I've certainly seen stranger things happen, the psychiatrist says, to try to offer some comfort. Norm's mother begins to cry. Norm sits, apathetically unconcerned by the news. The psychiatrist goes on and says, "I think there are a lot of things that can be done to help the situation and put a little more force on Norm's brain. I'm going to suggest that Norm comes in 6 days a week, so I can begin him on a more intensive talk therapy process. There are also several other medications and combinations of medications we can try. It's likely going to be a long road, but it's not hopeless." Over a year goes by. Norm's condition has not improved much. The antidepressant medications don't seem to help a lot, and the talk therapy has only helped Norm function better with his condition than fix it at its core. Norm has also tried electroconvulsive therapy, which uses electrical currents to stimulate the brain, which also didn't have any significant success. Since that day on the mountain, Norm has not felt anything, good or bad. Colors look different but don't feel different. What used to be his favorite meal tastes the same as what used to be his least favorite. His wife doesn't look better or worse than any other woman. A cloudy day feels the same as a sunny day. Even his memories have no associated feelings or qualities to them. They're like looking at photos from somebody else's past. Everything is the same, so nothing really is at all. Jill and Norm's family and friends have become increasingly scared and desperate. The strain on the family and Norm and Jill's relationship is beginning to boil over. It's like living and interacting with the shell of a person, fully intact, with nothing inside, or like a robot. but one with a face that reminds you in every moment that it should be a person. Jill still sees the person she fell in love with in his eyes, though, and to many others' surprise, she continues to stay with Norm, refusing to give up on him. Another year and a half goes by. Seemingly out of nowhere, the FDA approves a brand new depression medication that is the first functionally different depression medication in decades. The medication is derived from the drug known as ketamine, which had previously been used to induce and sustain surgical anesthesia, as well as used illegally to experience recreational hallucinogenic highs. After Yale University's research labs found ketamine to be highly successful in improving treatment-resistant depression disorders, it is federally approved in certain forms and released into the market. The medication essentially makes the brain malleable enough to be shaped and reshaped by affecting neurotransmitters and allowing the brain to form new neural connections. Norm's psychiatrist prescribes it. In order to facilitate the effectiveness of the medication, though, it is essential that Norm also works through a variety of complementary psychotherapeutic practices. As part of this, Norm's psychiatrist tells Jill and the rest of Norm's family that they should spend some time each day describing things to Norm. Little details of things and little nuances of emotions, how food tastes, how colors make them feel, what things are appealing to look at, what hurts and what feels good, what's boring, and everything in his daily life. In the following months, Jill does this every day with Norm. At first, she struggles to communicate sensations and experiences with words, especially as Norm's questions become more and more complicated and specific. But she gets better and better. She finds herself noticing the tiniest hidden details in each moment of each thing, the different sounding hums in the backgrounds of each location, the different smells in each pocket of air, the way different rays of sun feel on her skin, the way her tongue seems to vibrate differently with each different type of food, the way the textures of different materials make her feel, how different layers of all the sounds, odors, tastes, colors, lightings, objects, and feelings all work together to create a different scene of the world in each moment, like watching the same movie over and over again, but noticing something completely different each time. Norm uses every neuron in his brain to try to feel what Jill feels. It's the hardest thing he's ever done, trying to feel and imagine each thing she describes. It's like climbing the mountain all over again. After more than a year of effort goes by, the treatment is successful. Norm has slowly begun to feel again. It's a miracle to his friends and family, like he's been born again and given a second chance. They're overwhelmed with bliss and relief. For the first time in years, Norm can feel what they feel in these moments of happiness and appreciation. As part of his continuous recovery process, he picks at least one thing each day to describe in detail. An object, a color, a taste, an odor, a feeling, and whatever else. Jill continues to do this with Norm, even though she doesn't have to anymore. Today, Norm and Jill are lying together on the ground in their living room. They're on their sides as they look at, feel, and describe their living room carpet. They talk about how soft and comfortable it is, how it's like a patch of indoor grass for humans, without all the dirt and bugs. They laugh at this. They talk about the details on each little fiber, and how each little fiber builds into the whole carpet, making the room cozy and beautiful. In this particular moment, Norm and Jill feel a sense of happiness and wonder.